Hey friends, it's me, the best dungeon master. Man, I can't even pretend to be that self-confident. So obviously there is no quantifiable way to figure out if you're the best game master. There isn't like a test or a licensed GM judge. Plus it's subjective, so you might be the best GM for one person and the worst GM for another. But I think what we all want is to be the best version of ourselves as a game master, the best GM we can be. We want to feel confident that we're delivering a great game and having fun in the process. And if you already feel that way, then great, love that for you, but most of us probably feel like we have some room for improvement. And after reading and chatting with a bunch of other game masters, I think that there are 3 key problems, weaknesses, that are holding most of us back. Great news, those problems can be solved. So let's figure out how to earn this sash. The first thing holding game masters back is unrealistic expectations for yourself and your game. We live in a world where social media and highly produced actual play games have given us a lot of examples of what tabletop games can look like. We're all out here watching professional actors and comedians improvise incredible stories. We're watching game masters with decades of experience who can prep and world build as their full-time job. And we're watching TikToks and YouTube videos from creators who are highlighting their most creative ideas, their most successful sessions, showing us all their greatest accomplishments, and of course none of their failures. And you know, we're human, so we're comparing ourselves to all of this. Don't get me wrong, I think the online community around tabletop games is incredibly valuable. We can learn so much from seeing how other people are running games, but that can also result in placing expectations on ourselves that aren't helpful. For example, I love Critical Role, and I have learned so much from watching Matt Mercer DM, but also Matt and I are different. He loves world building. He really seems to enjoy coming up with sprawling continents and complex political systems and histories. And that's just not something I love. In fact, world building at that scale can be really overwhelming to me. But when I kicked off my first long-term campaign, my brain said that's what game masters do. They build huge worlds with tons of detail. So I tried to do that, and it stressed me out. And this doesn't just apply to celebrity DMs and actual play shows. I know a lot of you are perfectionists, like me, and expecting yourself to be perfect can be a huge hindrance to a game master. The nature of an improvised game means that you will make mistakes. You'll get something wrong that contradicts your lore, or forget to introduce information at the right time, or spill the beans on a secret. You'll make the wrong ruling, or misread a spell, or give your players the wrong magic item. It's not a question of if you'll mess up, but when. If you run games with this constant static in the back of your mind telling you that you need to be perfect, then ironically, you will be a worse game master. You'll take fewer risks, you'll be less responsive to your players, and you'll definitely have less fun. So how do we fix this? How do we stop placing unrealistic expectations on ourselves? Well, first of all, it's a huge step to just recognize that you're doing it. The more aware you are, the easier it'll be to notice it happening, and then you can change how you respond. But the more actionable answer is to lean into your strengths and your interests. What parts of running a game do you find fun? What are you good at? Shape your games around that, not around what you see other game masters doing. One of my strengths is NPC interactions, so I choose to feature NPCs pretty heavily in my games. And since world building is a weakness for me, I tend to run games in small, contained environments, like a small town or a dungeon, where I can feel confident that I understand the whole setting, without feeling like I need to detail an entire world. Now, that means that I'm unlikely to ever run a 3-year campaign that goes from level 1 to 20 and spans an entire world. And that's okay. That's just not the kind of game that I want to run. Your table is unique, and that's a feature, not a bug. Next up, another bad habit that might... We found a witch! Can we burn her? Wow, I can't believe it's sponsorship o'clock already. Okay, how do you know she's a witch?
Well, she's got all her world building information so organised. She can always find exactly what she needs when she's running a game. It's not natural.
I use World Anvil. It's a toolkit for game masters and world builders. It makes it really easy to document and organize your world. It's not that hard. There are ways of telling if she's a witch. What features does this World Anvil have that make it so easy to keep track of your world building? Well, you can create articles, interactive nestable maps, historical timelines, stat blocks, and character sheets. It was built by world builders, so they know exactly what tools creators need. You can even run game sessions through World Anvil. Could I see these things, or are they secret arcane mysteries, not for mortal eyes? I mean, there are built-in privacy tools so that dungeon masters can choose what information is public and what's for their eyes only. But
I don't know how arcane that is.
And how do you gain access to this website? Dark rituals, human sacrifice, having congress with the devil?
No. You can sign up for free to try it out and then use the code Ginny to get 51% off any annual membership if you want to unlock all the features.
But she looks like a witch.
I mean, that is a fair point. Why are you dressed like that if you're not a witch?
Oh, so fashion's a crime now?
Okay, get out. Where were we? Oh, another bad habit that might be holding you back is being inflexible. One thing I see a lot of GMs struggle with is being too married to the rules, the lore, the module, the plot. Whenever you're telling a collaborative story, it's super important to be able to adapt to what the other players are contributing. The more rigid you are, the less collaborative the game. The game mechanics, as well as any lore or pre-written adventure content that you're using, were created as tools to help you. They're not meant to be a finite list of everything you're allowed to do. In any game, there are moments of friction between what's printed on the page and what's happening at the table. A player who wants to use an ability in a way that's not quite covered in the description, or find a location or character that isn't written into the adventure. When you run into these moments, you have a choice. You can shut down your players' creative impulses and keep them on whatever track you believe is the right one, or you can engage with your players' creativity and follow them down the track that they choose to take. We talk about this a lot with stuff like the rule of cool, where you can change any rule if the result would be a cool moment that everyone at the table enjoys. And this is also what we're talking about when we use the term yes and, which is a common improv technique where you accept what the other person suggests and build on it instead of shutting it down. For example, if your party took a lot of fire damage in a fight, a player might say, "My mother taught me how to make a salve to treat burns. I could make that to heal us." And if you want to reward their creative roleplay, you might say, "Yes, and in order to make it, you need to find a flower called false amaryllis." Maybe your players hunt for some flowers, do a little amateur herbology, and you let them heal without using up their hit dice or healing spells. Now, this approach can create some amazing collaborative moments, but I'm definitely not saying that in order to be collaborative, you have to let your players have everything they ask for. As a GM, saying yes to everything isn't always feasible or good for the game. That's why I wish that more people were talking about yes and's lesser known cousin, no but. No but is a way of gently declining a player's idea when it doesn't fit the world or the narrative, but still engaging with their creativity. For example, if you don't want to give players the ability to brew their own healing salves because you're worried it could skew your game balance later, you could instead say, "No, unfortunately that salve takes weeks to reach potency. But if you could gather some of the flowers used for the salve, you could probably trade them to a local healer in exchange for discounted healing potions." That way, you're rewarding your players' creativity and directing it towards something that just works better for your game. That's what I really mean when I talk about flexibility. Not giving your players everything on a silver platter, but just being willing to play with them, to let them into the creation process. Put another way, this bad habit might be trying to own the story, because it's not just your story, it's your player's story too. And the more they feel like it's their choices and their actions that are driving the game, the more invested and excited they'll feel. It's easy to think that our job as game masters is to present a cool story to our players fully formed. But the thing that's actually fun for players is to interact with the world and see how that affects it. And the best news is, when you learn to let go of that rigid mindset, not only do you become a better game master, but running games gets easier and playing gets more fun. It's like a win-win-win situation. Now, I'm pretty sure this last one is actually the biggest thing holding most GMs back. And to be fair, it is a hard skill to learn, both in and out of tabletop games. The biggest obstacle to being a great game master is poor communication skills. No matter what system you're playing, when you play tabletop games with a group, you are playing a social game. And I think we've all seen games fall apart when the social element breaks down, even if the game itself doesn't really have any issues. Unfortunately, being good at communication is kind of hard because people are complicated and we can never be inside of each other's heads. But if you want your games to be good, you have to be able to navigate the social relationships that these games are built on. Now, the word communication is broad and vague, so let me give you a few examples of how this applies to a tabletop game. I'm talking about communicating expectations with your party before the game starts. What's the tone? Will this be a goofy game, a serious one? Will there be romance? Will there be horror? How will you handle scheduling conflicts? Is PvP allowed? How likely is character death? These shouldn't be things that you or your players have to guess at. But I'm also talking about session-to-session communication. Like saying, would you be okay with your character experiencing a class change as a result of your choices last session? Or, hey, were you hinting at starting a romance with this NPC, or was that just a passing joke? I think the position of Game Master can result in some people kind of building a wall between themselves and their party. And of course, there are going to be some secrets by necessity, but you should be able to talk with your players above table about the game, and they should be able to do the same. You aren't required to live in this GM black box where you're cut off from your players and can't share or discuss anything with them. Your game doesn't need to be this arcane mystery where you all secretly hope that the game will go a certain direction or be a certain way, but nobody actually says it. This impulse to separate yourself from your players can be really isolating for a GM. It can feel like you're moving through this group experience alone. For me, running games got so much less scary when I realized that I didn't have to be this mysterious, hooded dungeon master who had it all figured out and could read my players' minds. Instead of guessing at what my party would enjoy, I can just ask them. And this isn't just about pleasing your players. Good communication can also be about setting boundaries and saying no. Sometimes the thing that's fun for one player is not fun for another. Trying to accommodate players who aren't a good fit can make the game worse for everyone. And nobody has a good time if you run the wrong type of game for the group that you're playing with. Having strong communication skills can mean asking players what they want, but it can also mean telling players, no, you do not burn down the orphanage. No, you don't attack your party member in his sleep. That's not the kind of game we're playing. A tool I've found really useful for this is Stars and Wishes, which is a tool for feedback intended to be used after each session. You just go around the table and every single person offers up a star or something they enjoyed from the session and a wish or something they'd like to see in future sessions. A star could be something like complimenting a fellow player's roleplay choices or a monster that you enjoyed fighting, while a wish might be a type of encounter that you'd like to see in the future or a character moment that you want a chance to explore. As a game master, implementing this tool was huge for me because it presented a clear, compassionate structure for communicating with my players about their needs and about mine. So, you're working on your unrealistic expectations for yourself. You're trying to be more flexible and collaborative, and through it all, you are doing your very best to communicate with your party. You know what? Take the sash. You've earned it. Plus, it doesn't really go with this outfit.